I am pleased to make a contribution to the National Heritage Library's discussion on From the Mountains to the Sea, Stories Set Us Free. So we see that that is very relevant to Belize. My name is Frantz Smith. I would like to consider myself a Belizean writer. I have writing colleagues, Miss Marilyn Tulsi and Miss Emily Martinez. The literary objectives that I like to live by is the improvement of education and culture in Belize. This could sound like a controversial topic, but I will show you why these words. For example, the failure to collaborate is kind of a business culture in Belize. So on one side we have, for example, a lot of biological waste, biomass being produced in various industries, but on the other side we have Belize has one of the lowest soil organic matter and what they call the SOM in Central America. So there is some kind of disconnect here. So the struggles that I've seen as a writer is that on one side, when I started doing this around 2010, 2011, the assumption is, what can this guy, one guy walking about with books, what can he bring? What new can he bring to Belize? On the other hand of this equation is that there is a dire need for new ideas in Belize because the challenges that are to be solved abound. But in reality, as writers, we bring experience, we bring our struggles that we have had to deal with, and the solutions that we have had to create to the table. And we bring these in black and white in books, bringing relevant information, trying to help motivate people. It's extremely important. The whole issue of infrastructure, about the machines needed in the country, about the things like making education up to date, links to industry, and most of all making it fun. So one of the gifts that we brought to the table is that I think we were one of the first to try to link this whole concept of love and life. This is the kind of new bread that we bring. For example, in our workbook, we ask which one do you love and appreciate more? A mango that you can go on a tree and on your tree or your neighbor's tree and pluck it, you have access to it, or a box of mango juice from wherever. Which one has more value to you as a person? We ask about your pets, and a lot of people love their pets, and in some cases, people's pets are the only kind of connection that they have. Then with your family and with different characters in your family, I think we are some of the first to bring these up and to get young people to try to consider. No? Our approach to engage has been to share our ideas, including book project ideas from very early, because we need to get an idea if there is a want or a need for these. This can be a little bit dangerous because it might open your initiative for harm to be done to it. We started with blogging the book, but now a blog you have to have a website, and a website is expensive to run, so we just use Facebook. In terms of my personal evolution as a young man, I could not write any of these, straight back from UWI or from Texas A&M. I could not write these. At 30 years, I was not mindful enough to introspect, to dare to share knowledge. It felt unnatural back then in Belize to just try to share knowledge, and it wasn't something that was being done from what I remember. I am not a natural storyteller. I don't know any of the local stories and the traditional. I don't know them. I know a lot of people who know them. I've heard like a couple of people, I will dare say his name, and there was a man in down south by the name of Mr. Denzel Jenkins, originally from Mullins River, and he knows a lot of those old-time stories what happened in old villages, no? And those things are like should be treasures, no? Those stories. But I am now developing as a storyteller. I have learned a lot from a show that comes on every Saturday morning at 6 a.m. every first Saturday of the month from the BBC called the World Book Club. I also listen to National Public Radio from the United States. Also a channel called Channel News Asia, CNA. And I listen to these from a app called Radio Garden. You can find it easily on the internet, where you can listen to radio stations from all over the world, like 10,000 radio stations. The point of departure as a young writer was this book that I wrote called A History of Enterprise in Belize. And it was topical for the time back in 2012. And I think it still has relevance in terms of getting it to the young people. It has been very difficult. But I will show you why this book has motivated me a lot. No, it's a book that I wrote, but it still motivates me. We talk about in it about 44 different types of economic activity in Belize, and one of them is banking. How did banking start? So, like we discussed, like in 1902, and when the first commercial bank came, but before that there was in 1846. The government savings bank was created under control of the Treasury Department, and we know from the old newspapers that prior to this, the way how people would save their money is that they would take their money and put it in jars and bury it. No? That was the bank that they used. They buried it, and then the savings bank came on board, and you could deposit like $1. Between $1 and $250 between noon and 3 p.m. and the monies were sent to England. The depositors would get paid 3% interest. And if you were a woman and you started an account as a young woman and started depositing, by the time you get married, you not necessarily could have access to your money, because you were married. Your husband he would be the one who would have the right to withdraw. You would have to ask permission to withdraw your money. We wrote 2 other books after, the Belize Facts and Figures and the Workbook. And these 2 have been a little bit more accepted, but this one is always referenced. So the new objective that we have is to write historical fiction based on the first book, and you teach a lot of civics, a lot of physics, but science through historical fiction, and we try to address the education needs of Belize, the historiography part of it, and I can guarantee you there are a lot of stories that are ripe for telling to Belize and to the rest of the world. The market is the Belizean education system, but I will be putting a lot of extra energy to try to get it into North America and Canada, and we think that even with tariffs and all that, these are what you call weightless goods. One email can send this even book to the States, and we figure out how to get remunerated for it. There are all possibilities. I will tell you about this graphic here. This graphic here is a locomotive boiler that was extracted from an old train in Belize and used as the source of steam to pasteurize milk in Belize. This happened around, I think it's 1964, or a little bit after. This is part of the new book called 22 Windmills, the Mennonite Journey from West Friesland to Iguana Creek, which is a graphic novel or a picture book, or whatever you would want to call it, more of a graphic novel. It's not finished, but it's well underway. And we're teaching basically a lot about physics, a lot about wind energy and mechanics and gear ratios and all that. And energy to the young people. We want it's a book about technology, but in the form of a little novel. No? So these are some of the chapters. We did part 1, part 2, part 3. Part 1 speaks about the start of that journey in Northern Europe, in Switzerland, Germany, the Netherlands, then into Ukraine, well, into Poland, then Ukraine. Then the second part talks about crossing the ocean to Canada and the US, then to Chihuahua. And then part 3 talks about the Mennonite immigration to Belize, migration to Belize. So I will just give you, if you would allow me, a little part of it. where we talk about Daisy, the whole scene from Pennsylvania. So this is a part of the 22 windows. At the break of dawn, just as the morning star dissolved into the crystal blue of the morning sky, a faint song could be heard from a distance. It quickly grew louder, and then it was like a boiler breathing out steam. That's the sound of the motor. That's a big one. That airplane is large. They could not see where it landed, but because they were near the cargo section of the airport, they could feel how the large propellers were chopping into the air and pushing the plane forward towards the three trucks. As it was now 7 a.m., they could see the red, white, and blue of the fat-bodied airplane as it came to a stop at a grassy corner of the airport. To their surprise, one of the cows had punched open and completely knocked out a window on the plane. This very large black and white heifer pushed its head out of the plane, and upon seeing the green grass of Belize from the airplane, was mooing and mooing because it wanted to get at the green grass. I haven't named this person yet. Mr. X quickly told Jacob, "Tell your brother that animal is hungry. He needs to take that animal to feed." And so Amos guided the fattest heifer he had ever seen down the chute and took her to the grassy patch of pangola grass that had grown up as a weed at the airport. She is a very gentle animal. We will call her Daisy. So that is a little part of the piece of work that I'm doing. It's a work in progress, and hopefully I will live long enough to see it in published form. We just want to share also that this actually happened. The imputation of the whole scenes, it was a donation from the Mennonite community in Pennsylvania to the Mennonite community in Belize in the 1960s, and it actually happened, but I built the story around it, the part besides the historical facts. No? We see that this kind of thing still happens in Belize. At this point, I would just like to share, if you're doing your writing, as a writer in Belize, you have to know your clients and their needs, try to meet their needs. A big problem in Belize is violence that we have, but we want to ask, is this a symptom? Is this a problem or is it a symptom? No? Maybe the real problem and maybe the real issue of need and greed. And I'd just like to suggest to you writers out there to write for young people. That is where we can make the biggest change, because the adults, you can't change them. So I would just like to say thank you. This is a piece of art from the new book. No? So thank you very much, and we wish to hear from you. If anybody would like to connect with us, just give us a shout on Facebook. Thank you.